Hello, you'll notice this isn't the usual setup for really any of my videos I do, but I've just finished working outside and going for a walk, so I'm a little I'm a little tired and just wanted to sit down for a minute before heading back up to my office, which makes this video actually inconvenient because it would have been better to be upstairs with my camera and the books that I'm going to be talking about in this video. So Javier Perdomo and Cannon and Creed both recently made excellent videos critiquing Rock and Sand, a book by now, I believe, Archpriest, Father Josiah Trenum. And his book, Rock and Sand, is basically a critique of Protestantism. But they highlight what I think is super common in, unfortunately, a lot of works still today. Books like Casey Chalk's Obscurity of Scripture. If you've heard of a book called Thinking Orthodox, I've heard critiques of that even from Eastern Orthodox, ladies and gentlemen. So, not just a Protestant having objections here, but each of these books has something in common. They tend to strawman their opponents, and not just slightly, pretty extensively, and pretty obviously, if you're aware of what the other side's teaching. So, I'm not going to talk about Rock and Sand. They have done that plenty already. But as I've talked about with The Obscurity of Scripture by Casey Chalk several times, his book is an excellent critique of solo scriptura, but not sola scriptura. He makes claims that I've already addressed, stuff like Protestants become their own popes. In fact, their own absolute authority. I'm not sure he knows what that phrase means based off that usage, but here we go. And he lumps Unitarians and Quakers in with Protestants. And he doubles down on Unitarians in a later interview with Swansona. He continues on that. So for him, he can say that Sedevacantist and Old Catholics, those are dissenters. Those are people who are just going against the official teachings of Rome. But if we were to say that Unitarians, who aren't even Christians, are dissenters, well, actually they're under the Protestant umbrella. This is a rule for thee and rule for thee, not for me. And then with Thinking Orthodox, I remember chapter 5 especially, I went through a fair amount of that and just crossed out Eastern and put Christian. Because she puts this book as this light of, here's Western Christianity, Roman Catholics and Protestants, versus Eastern Christianity. But she's not really doing that. She even strawmans Roman Catholics, which I freely admit as someone who has harsh critiques of Rome. And it's pretty bad. She's like, well, this is Western versus Eastern. I'm like, no, this is largely just Christianity. And I say all this just because it's important to be honest in our disagreements. We can have harsh, even vitriolic disagreements in the correct circumstances, but we can do it honestly and over things that are true. We don't have to make up things in order to have disagreements.